Hello and welcome to No Culty Vibes. In this video, we're going to be talking about Scooter Braun, the man that every Swiftie loves to hate, the man who discovered Justin Bieber and his connections to cults or cult-like characteristics. I've always felt like Scooter Braun is a little grifty, little culty, and I recently did a deep dive to learn more about him. I have another video about that on my page that you can check out if you want to. But I came across this Business Insider article and it's titled The Many Faces of Scooter Braun, and it has really a ton of culty red flags. So I want to go through this article with you guys, read some of the things to you, maybe read all of it to you, because truly the whole thing is a culty red flag. But I want to give my commentary on some of the things that really stood out to me. If you're new here and you don't know who I am, I'm Cassie Marie. I'm an ex cult hopper and an artist, and I make content about the things that I've learned about cults and high control groups and religions, cult psychology, and I just kind of share my journey of deconstructing from these things and what this looks like in every group, every area of our society, pop culture, stuff like that. So if you're interested in culty content, please like this video, go ahead and subscribe. If you do subscribe, comment below and let me know, and I'll chat with you a little bit in the comments because I would love to have you, would love to chat with you guys about everything culty and pop culture. So let me figure out how to get this set up, bring up this Business Insider article. It's really long. So I don't know if we'll get through the whole thing today in one part, if we're going to have to do multiple parts, but we're going to go through it and see what it says. So I couldn't figure out when exactly this was written. I want to say someone wrote this in 2022. I don't know why it doesn't have it like right here. It usually says like the date or whatever. But it opens up talking about Kanye West. And I'm going to read at least a lot of the beginning to you guys because, like I said, the whole thing is just kind of a culty red flag. But they open up talking about Kanye West. So it says, in December 2018, West called Braun his on again, off again manager. West needed help closing a deal that would sell a percentage of Yeezy, his now billion-dollar footwear and apparel company, to a third party with manufacturing capability in China. And this is from a person associated with Yeezy at the time. The story is, when Braun flew out to meet West, the artist began second guessing his decision to sell. According to this person, Braun, who represents some of the biggest artists in the world, including Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande, told West that he didn't have to move forward if he wasn't comfortable with the deal. And West said that he didn't want to be scared and signed the deal anyway. Later, though, West appeared to have a change of heart, and this person said that West confronted Braun in front of several people, yelling at him and accusing him of trying to trick West, take advantage of him, and sign away Yeezy to someone else. He said that Braun, all he wanted was his commission, and Braun was thoroughly insulted and tore up the deal, which hadn't yet been given to the lawyers. And the next day, he told West that he should stop working together. So this was kind of like one of their major tiffs that had them breaking up and getting back together. But people that were familiar with Kanye West's perspective at the time told Insider that 2 years earlier, around the time that West was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, Braun had attempted to take owning interest in Yeezy for himself. They said West felt manipulated by Braun, and someone described the incident as the breaking point in their relationship. And I do just want to point out that Kanye West was also close to Lou Taylor at the time, and this is really giving Free Britney, conservatorship, Lou Taylor taking advantage of someone when they're in a vulnerable position. So I thought that was a little interesting. That was a little culty. Lou Taylor is super culty. It says he talked the talk. I care about Kanye. I would never take advantage. But Scooter's most important client has always been Scooter. There are these little pieces of information in parentheses where Business Insider talked to Scooter Braun's lawyer, Marty Singer. So Marty Singer has a couple of comments about some of these specific situations. And funny story, Marty Singer also represented Danny Masterson back in the early 2000s when Jane Doe 1 first accused Danny Masterson of R word, and Marty Singer worked with Scientology lawyers to create an NDA to pay off Jane Doe 1. Marty, not all bad. I understand. Is honestly culty red flag. Can you pause a lot? Oh, it's back. I wonder if my internet's just really bad. Oh well, we will press on. We will figure it out. So it says people in the entertainment industry have hidden motivations and competing loyalties and are selective about the tales they tell. And of course, Kanye West has been candid about his history with mental illness. I thought this little part was kind of funny where when Insider actually got a hold of Kanye West. Um, but this is just kind of a good entryway story into talking about some of the things that Braun has been accused of, even though we may not know for sure what happened in this. It's like the beginning of the red flags. This talks a little bit about how Braun is mostly known for discovering Justin Bieber and for his feud with Taylor Swift, but over the years he's transformed himself from a talent manager into like a really powerful deal broker, and he's sold his company for a lot of money. And along the way, he's gone to great lengths to distinguish himself as a good guy, a family oriented philanthropist with a strong moral code, known for steering artists out of rough patches. But many say that far from being an exception in a particularly ugly industry, Braun is one of its most ruthless players, a relentless egotist whose main focus is burnishing his image and growing his empire. The majority asked that their names not be used out of fear of retaliation, citing Braun's reputation for litigiousness. I've never seen anyone burn so many bridges with so many people, a person familiar with Braun's business dealings said. This was the first majorly culty thing that stood out to me in this article. We know that Scientology is really famous for being extremely litigious and very viciously attacking anyone who dares to criticize anything about them. And allegedly, Braun is as well. And so is Marty Singer, his lawyer. Marty Singer is one of those lawyers that when he's defending someone, he is kind of a bulldog. He likes to go on the attack. He likes to accuse other people of things instead of addressing the actual issues or addressing the actual criticisms. So that's red flag number 2, but major red flag number 1. Depending on which version of Braun you've come to know, the 2018 incident with West is either an example of a devoted manager going above and beyond for a struggling client, or a cautionary tale of a cutthroat operator taking advantage of a vulnerable star. It's either admirable or abhorrent, which tends to be how people feel about Braun. It also tends to be how people feel about cult leaders. Cult leaders or toxic humans or even like malignant narcissists, they will keep you guessing, keep you on your toes. They do things like love bomb you, but then they'll criticize you for things. They kind of thrive on keeping you off your game and not being able to tell if they're a good person or a bad person. And the fact that Scooter Braun is so very worried about how he is perceived, so much so that he's litigious and tries to control the narrative of what's actually happening or what's going on behind the scenes, is extremely culty. So this talks about how Braun was a trailblazer in terms of talent management, and he harnessed the power of social media to turn his artists into global brand names. Of course, he worked with Ariana Grande, J Balvin. I didn't know he worked with the South Korean singer that did Gangnam Style. I didn't realize that. I also didn't realize how much Scooter Braun is like on YouTube and involved with YouTube. That was a really big part of him building his talent management. Scooter Braun, nay Scott, started his entrepreneurial career selling fake IDs as a student at Emory University before segueing into party promoting. That's grifty. Like, that sounds so grifty. That's illegal. I think that's just that's an interesting tidbit. Oh my gosh. There was something else right in the beginning here that I wanted to. Oh, okay. The young Braun always seemed very in control, said Matt Graham, a college friend and fellow music manager. He remembers once asking a 21-year-old Braun what his goals were, with Braun responding to build the next DreamWorks. This really stuck out to me and made me think of Elizabeth Holmes with Theranos, who just got sentenced to jail earlier this year. Whenever people talked about her early life and career and in college, she always had these huge, lofty goals and was always extremely in control. That's exactly how people described her. She was always very, very in control and was very clear about what she wanted and how she was going to get it. She wanted to be the next Steve Jobs in the medical field, and it sounds like Scooter Braun leaned more towards entertainment. So, just again, another thing kind of lumping him in with these grifty, like cult like business leaders. In 2007, Braun launched his own talent management company, SB Projects. The next year, he discovered Justin Bieber. What else? Let me take a sip of my Celsius while I read. Oh yeah, this talks about the lengths that he went to track down Justin Bieber when he saw him on YouTube. This person who worked with Braun said he's a savage. He was built for this. Oh, okay. So Braun conducts himself with the easy confidence of someone who has never sat anywhere but courtside. He has a smattering of well-groomed facial stubble and a boxy frame that he outfits in hoodies and baseball caps, emblazoned with his and his clients' various side hustles. He speaks as if he's perpetually delivering a TED Talk, a combination of candid riffs, long pauses, and choice moments of vulnerability that make him sound somehow both unstudied and carefully rehearsed. This makes me think of Elizabeth Holmes as well. Elizabeth Holmes had a uniform that she wore. She modeled herself after Steve Jobs, but she wore the same thing every day. And she said it was because Steve Jobs did that to eliminate the number of decisions that he had to make in a day. But this kind of uniform became very characteristic of her. And she spoke in a very particular way. She changed her voice when she started building Theranos. She made her voice very deep. If you've ever heard Elizabeth Holmes talk, she always kind of talked like this. And her former friends and college classmates said she never sounded like that before. I don't know why she chose to do that. There are a few theories behind that. But she talked in a very specific way with a very specific rhythm. And again, she was very controlled and it was the same every time. This is also characteristic of cult leaders. Several cult leaders had like a very specific look or uniform about them and wore very specific things. And there is something with language and rhythm of talking that can almost be hypnotic, but most cult leaders are very well spoken. This microphone is itchy. They're extremely well spoken and they often have a rhythm to how they speak. It makes me think of like Charles Manson. Whenever people described Charles Manson, they said like the rhythm at which he talked would just captivate them. And they don't even know if it was what he was saying as much as how he carried himself and how he said it. Something like this is very carefully curated to give off a specific image and look and feel, and to make the people around you feel a certain way. And this can be fine. Like, this can be just a branding thing. It doesn't necessarily mean it's harmful, but it also can be extremely manipulative and used in a terrible way. Just depends on who's doing it. This talks about how other managers have faded into the background, but Braun has always sought the limelight. Oh, okay. So this is talking about the documentaries of his artists. So in 2011, he gave himself a prominent supporting role in the Bieber concert documentary, Justin Bieber Never Say Never, which became one of the highest grossing concert films of all time. Later that year, he threw himself a star studded birthday party at Hollywood's Fonda Theater, then known as the Music Box Theater. A Los Angeles Times blog post reported that during the party, Bieber roasted his manager with an impression of Braun negotiating a sequel to the film. "My name has to be on the poster," Bieber as Braun riffed to the crowd. Marty Singer told Insider that the Times incorrectly described Bieber's bit, and the joke was that my client wanted more money. Either way, not looking great. In his late teens. Okay, and then this is talking about how Bieber started getting a lot of trouble in his late teens and early 20s. His controversies and his DUI and punching paparazzi. Faced with the implosion of his star client, Braun went to Herculean lengths to salvage Bieber's reputation and get his career back on the rails. "Things were worse than people realized," Braun told the Wall Street Journal years later, saying that he worried that Bieber, who was using, I don't know if I can say that on YouTube at the time, don't know if I can say that either. You can read that for yourself. Braun became known for his cushy relationships with editors and journalists across the industry, according to 6 media insiders. The attitude at one major entertainment outlet was, "We don't speak badly about Braun and his clients." When the industry dramas occurred, he'd be the first person to call up in order to progress his agenda. Again, very culty. If you are afraid to criticize or afraid to say anything bad about someone or a group or anything, why might that be? That feels very culty to me. They asked Perez Hilton about it. A lot of other managers would compartmentalize and let the publicist handle it, but he was there in the thick of it all. That seems to be another theme with Scooter Braun, is that he involves himself in every aspect, which could be him being the best manager in the world, or could be Scooter Braun being very controlling. While all managers get their hands dirty to protect their clients, some in Braun's orbit felt Braun could take things too far. The rapper Lil Twist, a close friend of Bieber's during his wild years, has said he became a regular scapegoat for the superstar's misbehavior, stating on a 2020 podcast that he took the fall for I don't think I can say it, but on YouTube, possession charge. That's extremely culty and narcissistic, making people scapegoats, controlling the narrative, making people take the fall for other people. He made sure he did everything to protect Justin, and he did his job, but he did it wrong by hurting other people to get things done, and it wasn't right. Marty Singer denied that his client ever planted negative stories about Lil Twist. Of course he denied it, because what is he going to say to that? He also called Lil Twist a demonstrably unreliable source. That reminds me of when Scientology releases statements whenever they're in a new lawsuit or accused of something. Scientology uses like really abnormally strong language towards people who speak out about them, or whatever the situation is. Like they'll call it a scam and a sham, or they'll say this person is an abhorrent critic and they have nothing going for them, and that's the only reason why they do it. Reminds me a little of that. Would Braun have gone to any lengths to protect Bieber's image? Of course, and that's part of what made him such a good manager. Multiple people said that was like his son. We're going to talk more about that in a second, but that's another red flag. As a quasi-parental figure, Braun appeared to be enmeshed in nearly all aspects of the star's life, including his on and off relationship with the singer Selena Gomez. Over time, there definitely got to be bad blood between the two camps. An individual privy to the dynamic between Gomez and Braun said, One person with knowledge of this dynamic said Gomez's best friend, Taylor Swift, was appalled by the way Braun handled aspects of Bieber and Gomez's relationship. The person said this was one of the reasons Swift went after Braun so hard after he purchased her masters in 2019. Singer told Insider the claims about Swift was ridiculous, adding that Braun continues to have a very good relationship with Selena. He noted that Braun and Swift were pictured dancing together in Taylor's photo booth at a private Billboard afterparty in recent years. But T Swizz said if Scooter is trying to insinuate they were friends, it would have been the friendly thing to do to ask her if she was okay with him buying her entire life's work out from under her. He did not do that. Obviously, any photo taken with him was before Taylor found out all of the details and the full extent of some of the things that went down. So let's talk about the family dynamic. Daniela Mestinick Young is a scholar of cults and extreme groups. She was raised in the Children of God cult and then joined the US Army. And she wrote a book comparing the Army to the Children of God cult. And she has a few criteria that make groups cults or make a good group not a cult that can be applied sometimes to individuals or can be applied to situations to see if they're culty or not. One of those things that she said is good groups will never call themselves a family. And I realize this is a little bit different because Braun discovered Justin Bieber when he was very young, and Justin essentially grew up with him and he really built his career. So I can understand a family dynamic. But when you start throwing the word family around as people with a business relationship and a business partnership, it just makes me a little bit nervous because the reason Daniela says don't ever call yourself a family is because you'll have members or people willing to sacrifice themselves more so than they would normally if they feel such an intimate and deep bond with someone to call them family. And that is something that can very much be taken advantage of, that can put someone in a very vulnerable position. So it's just a red flag and something that makes me super nervous that not only do they say that Bieber was like a son to Scooter Braun and Scooter Braun was this quasi parental figure, but that Braun was enmeshed in every area of Justin's life. There are a lot of area that's a cult leader thing also, to control many, many aspects of somebody's life. And as a business manager, as a talent manager, you would expect Braun to manage the business and manage the talent, not be so fully invested in every aspect of their life, including their romantic relationships. And then the fact that Taylor Swift, like this was kind of the root. This was one of the many reasons why Taylor Swift had issues with Scooter Braun that made her so upset when he bought her masters out from under her. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Let me get another drink. This talks a little bit about his upbringing, how hard he works. That's a narrative I've noticed with some kind of more grifty cults. Like I think about the Kardashians and Kris Jenner and how they love to talk about how hard they work. And, Kim went viral last year for saying no one wants to work these days. And anytime they're questioned about their bodies or anything, it's just, we work so hard, we work so hard, we work so hard. It's part of this image that they want to portray. And we could get really deep into the weeds of that as well, because that relates back to a lot of Christian cults and Pentecostalism and really like the cult of capitalism and where that comes from in our society and in the United States. And let me know if you want me to make a video about that separately, because I don't know that we're going to have time to do this. I'm already 25 minutes in here and we still have a lot to go. But another red flag culty connection. All the phones ringing. Braun was a natural at building relationships. And he amassed a circle of longtime loyalists. That is culty as well. Do you see what I mean? Like every single thing you can tie back to a cult leader in this article. Cult leaders tend to be very charismatic and they tend to be good at creating really intimate relationships with people. And they tend to have a tight inner circle cults are like a pyramid with like a person at the top, and then you have the tight inner circle, and then outside of that you have the members of the cult, like the participating members, the loyal members, and then outside of that you have like kind of the peripheral members. And the harm also happen always, not always. The harm often happens towards the top of the pyramid, but cult leaders are great at amassing these loyal inner circles. Oh, this is all his friends shared stories with Insider about him comforting their relatives. I don't think these things necessarily count as love bombing, but since we're talking about cults and red flags, it's giving a little bit love bomby vibes. And this, I remember saying the kid's got the juice, he's got the power, he's going to make it. He had all the elements of a person who's going to win in the music business. Over time, Braun began taking on major investments from private equity firms. Okay, so some artists felt neglected as he began to get bigger, maybe too big for his britches. I think a lot of people see the management relationship as an artist development process, but Braun has always been treating it as an investment portfolio. I think when you treat money a certain way, it can get really culty and really harmful very fast. Singer told Insider that Braun never lost or dropped an artist until they had spent a substantial amount of time, had incurred substantial losses, and he and the artist felt there was nothing more that they could do together. So again, Marty Singer saying that that's not true. Let me see. Are there any comments? Oh, Liz. Hi. Okay. Okay, so this talks a little bit about Madison Beer. I've seen some videos. I think you can YouTube and look at some videos of Madison Beer talking about this, but I think she's also walked back some of these comments. But Braun signed Madison Beer off of YouTube, and let's see. There was a scandal with her. Again, I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but the scandal was a horrifying experience for Madison Beer. And she said that this experience left her with years of anxiety, trauma, shame. This isn't necessarily anything Scooter Braun did, but she felt kind of abandoned and neglected by him and felt like he didn't want to take her on as a client because she didn't fit the brand and image he wanted for her when these things, oh, I don't want to click that, when these things began circulating. And every single time an artist talks about Scooter Braun and leaving him, and if they had a bad experience, they always say that his focus was solely on Justin, and Scooter Braun didn't necessarily give them the time of day. And cult leaders will often do this where they like pick favorites and they'll use like one person in their inner circle as an example of what they expect everyone else to be like. And if you're not like that person, they will not give you the time of the day. They will not like give you their energy and their love. And they will only pay attention to you if you act like this one certain person. So a lot of these stories are reminding me of that characteristic of cult leaders. For many artists, signing with Braun felt like a golden ticket to stardom. So when things didn't work out as they envisioned, it stung even more. So Scooter Braun managed Todrick Hall back in 2013. He was a YouTuber, and Todrick Hall was also great friends with Taylor Swift. But he also left Braun saying that he felt like his career wasn't taken too seriously. I guess I have to mention that Marty Singer pointed out that Todrick Hall has faced claims of workplace misconduct and he shouldn't be trustworthy. But what had happened was Todrick Hall released a YouTube visual album called Straight Out of Oz, which was Wizard of Oz inspired musical about his life. Braun was the inspiration for the wizard, the man behind the curtain who is not who he claims to be. The wizard is also very culty, cult leadery. You can watch The Wizard of Oz and pull out cult-like similarities from that as well. In one scene, the wizard, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, glides into the room on a scooter with a monkey on his shoulder, which was a not so subtle reference to Braun. Scooter Braun, who was still Hall's manager at the time, was super, super upset when he learned the details. And he threatened to get Hall's YouTube channel removed if he didn't delete the unflattering references to him. Marty Singer says this never happened, but people said Braun also demanded that Hall list him as an executive producer, even though he hadn't been involved with the album at all. Hall refused to remove all the Scooter references, and they stopped working together. But one of the people said it's all about control, controlling everyone's image and everyone's narrative. And I would add, including the narrative about Scooter himself. Hall is one of the few former SB clients to have spoken publicly about negative experiences working with Braun. And of course, like a good culty person, Hall is just a disgruntled former client of Mr. Braun with significant animosity towards him, aka what every cult ever says about every person ever who's ever left a cult and speaks out about it. Oh, so much here. Okay, now we are talking about Ariana Grande. So Braun introduced Ariana Grande to Pete Davidson, and their lightning engagement sparked a tabloid frenzy. A month after they broke up, Grande debuted a new song, Thank You Next, we all know, love, in which she sang about the many things she had learned about herself from her exes, including Pete Davidson. Within 24 hours, the music video, featuring a cameo from Kris Jenner. The Kardashians are super culty, and Kris Jenner is also a cult leader. There will be videos about that coming out. Again, don't think I can say this on YouTube, but Davidson, the video featured a subtle allusion to Davidson's and it became the most watched music video debut in YouTube's history. I didn't know that. That's wild. Davidson felt blindsided by the release, and a person close to the situation said, I think their relationship didn't get a fair shake because management was so involved. So here we are again with Scooter Braun being extremely, extremely involved in the personal lives and relationships of his business clients. That's not appropriate, Scooter. Scooty Scoots. I had a dog named Scooter. I loved him so much. He died just a couple years ago, but I called him Scooty Scoots. And I kind of hate that I have to talk about Scooter Braun, whose name is actually Scott. Who chooses to name themselves Scooter? Okay, this is where it gets annoying to me and like a little bit upsetting. Over the years, Braun has become well-versed in the language of trauma, mental health, and recovery, executive producing a series of documentaries that focused on the harrowing physical toll of stardom. In these stories, Braun often casts himself as a steadfast mentor with an impeccable moral compass. In the 2020 documentary, The Boy from Medellin, I'm going to get roasted for pronouncing that wrong. Oh no. The Latin superstar J Balvin experiences an internal crisis about whether to take a political stance on youth protests in Colombia. Right before the moment of truth, Braun shows up in Colombia. I don't know what that means. In a black baseball cap and convinces his distraught star to do the right thing. You're here because of those kids, Braun said. When you get a platform that can inspire people around the world, it also comes with a responsibility. So Braun is very, very focused on the narrative. This is the second documentary. Is that what it was? A series of documentaries. Okay, so this is the second documentary that Scooter has inserted himself in as a hero, again, trying to paint a very specific picture about himself and his brand as being a lovely, amazing, philanthropic, save the day kind of person. Sounds like something a cult leader would want to do. Maybe deifying himself a little bit, maybe trying to make himself a little bit closer to God than the rest of us. He's Jewish. He's not Christian. So I'm not saying he's starting a religion or a spiritual cult. But you can see the connections. You can see the similarities. Last year, whenever this was written last year, YouTube released Dancing with the Devil, a YouTube documentary Braun executive produced for his new client, Demi Lovato. In the film, Lovato, whose pronouns are they, them. So this was a few years ago because Demi's pronouns are now she, they. Shared graphic details for the first time about their near fatal overdose in 2018. The documentary, which garnered tens of millions of views, gave Braun the chance to once again position himself as a savior. In the film, Lovato said they sought out Braun specifically because he made them feel safe. As melancholy piano music played, Braun, in a black t-shirt and cap, again with this uniform that we talked about in the beginning of this video, said he was planning to turn Lovato down as a client, but he knew he had to say yes once the singers started pouring out their heart and soul. Lovato didn't need a manager, he mused. Lovato needed a friend. Uh-oh, sounds again like we're blurring the lines a little bit between business relationships and personal relationships. And when you involve money in that, it gets shady. But again, this literally says he is positioning himself as a savior. He is positioning himself as a kind of literally helping his clients become born again. A godlike figure that takes his music clients. He's a storyteller, right? And that's a very powerful story to use, but it can also be a very culty story to use. And it can also invoke deeper emotions that lead to deeper loyalties that, again, will make people do things that they may not otherwise do in normal business situations. So the film gave the perspective that Lovato had finally turned a corner, in large part thanks to Braun's management. Blah, blah, blah. He just needed a friend. What did she renounce? Oh, Lovato spoke confidently in the documentary about their decision to continue using substances in moderation. Braun took a more measured stance, saying that this approach was not something he truly agreed with, but all he could do was be a friend and hope that they were all right. And then Lovato renounced that position, saying sober is the only way to be, because Demi returned from another stint in rehab. I'm not going to comment on that yet. That is not what this is about. There are some culty things that we could talk about in those dynamics as well, but I think that might be for another video or another deep dive. Oh, okay. So they say exactly what I was saying. His documentaries are always about this redemption narrative. Like, this is me, this is what I went through, and now I'm great, and everyone eats it up. Rather than being an honest reflection of reality. It's too storyboarded and meticulously crafted, and nothing about it is authentic. Right, because there's a motive behind it. It's not supposed to be an authentic storytelling for people to identify with it and for it to help people or whatever. It's to make money. Like, there's a motive behind it. And I think there's just a line in our culture, in marketing, in pop culture in general, where kind of anything goes if you're making a lot of money and if you're getting a lot of views and a lot of clicks. And sometimes I think they're just very blurred lines of something that's ethical or unethical. Not that watching a documentary and the motives behind the documentary are super harmful, but it can be in the wrong context. And the fact that he does this over and over and is consistently covering up any harmful thing he does do, it's not allowing us to look at Scooter Braun with a critical lens and look at him as a whole person, as a real person. And instead, it's just painting him as a savior and a perfect human that does nothing wrong and could get away with anything. As he shepherds stars like Bieber and Grande to the top of the charts, Braun was also carefully crafting his own legacy. Exactly. In 2014, he got married. There's something specific about this I wanted to see. Braun said his goal was to change the music industry so that when people come to the business and they say, "Who's the baddest dude here?" they see someone who is family first. Between sun-kissed family beach snaps and workout videos, Braun's Instagram was peppered with inspirational quotes from Marcus Aurelius and Maya Angelou. I'm probably going to get slammed for not knowing who that is and mispronouncing that as well. That's fine. Braun has often said his idol is David Geffen, and the pair have formed a relationship over the years. He's very rich, a very rich man. He's prioritized the growth of his investment company. This is also interesting, and I haven't, I don't know if I have really intelligent things to say about why this is culty or if it's culty, but Braun's corporate holdings tie into classic mythology. So he has Ithaca Holdings, which share a name with the hero Odysseus's mythical homeland in Homer's Odyssey. He has a film studio called Mythos, and a frequent business catchphrase, which is burn the ships, a euphemism for going all in on a project, based on how the ancient Greeks set fire to their own ships when arriving on enemy shores. There are a lot of similarities, like war references, when you talk about cults and cult leaders. Just the psychological manipulation used in war is very similar to that used by cult leaders. So I wonder, I think it also just contributes to like his grandiose ideas of himself and who he is. Like I could see him thinking of himself as this mythological being or this godlike half man, half god, Hercules type thing. Of course, the biggest pieces of my businesses are not public. Maybe I'll tell all the details when I'm 50 or 60. The rumors right now about Scooter Braun, like people thinking that his clients are all dropping him, people think that he's being investigated for something and he may be accused or indicted for or convicted of fraud at some point. I don't know if that's true. There are a bunch of blind items about it. I don't know if there's anything to that, but him being so secretive and like mysterious is very cult leader like. And also, maybe they're secret because he dabbles in a little bit of fraud here and there. As his net worth has grown, Braun has positioned himself as a philanthropic and magnanimous, that's right, man of the world, hosting fundraisers for Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris and rallying around causes like gun control. Articles started to appear saying top Democrats wanted Braun to run for office in California. "I'm thinking about getting more involved with our leadership," he told CBS in 2017. I think the Kardashians also have political aspirations. Um, Obviously, we have the Donald Trump of it all with the political culty stuff. Cults tie into politics a lot. In the IBLP, the Duggar cult that Shiny Happy People was about, Bill Gothard, they had a lot of political aspirations as well and often raised children in the cult to grow up and be political. So anytime people in entertainment have political aspirations, I think it's just, or in religion. If you get entertainment or religion and you mix it with political aspirations, just feels very culty to me. Oh, this is talking about Ariana Grande's One Love Manchester benefit concert. It's a good thing I'm not monetized. I really didn't realize how much was in this article that I literally cannot say on TikTok or on YouTube. Oh my God, TikTok. He personally introduced Grande to the crowd for her benefit concert. Behind the scenes, some said Braun bore less and less resemblance to his nice guy image. Other managers have public personas directly in line with the way they behave. Yes, as is normal. They are known as tough guys on behalf of their clients, and they'll say, "I'm a mother effer, but I am this way because that's my job." An entertainment insider says that's the open secret about Scooter in the industry. He personifies hypocrisy at the highest level. Now, I wonder, like, how culty can you call it if everybody agrees? Like, if everybody knows that, if it's like the worst kept secret in the industry that he's just a giant hypocrite. However, being open and honest and giving people information, the right information, and people having informed consent as they're doing business dealings with you, as they're interacting with you as a public figure, is very important. Information control is part of Stephen Hassan's BITE model. If you don't know what that is, you can look up BITE model and Google it. I will make videos on it. But information control is a big part of undue influence, coercive control, culty manipulation, and a lack of informed consent and just not being upfront and honest about who you are and how you do things and the motivations behind what you do. It makes you sound like a cult leader. Managers who have had dealings with Braun have left the experience feeling burned, according to multiple industry peers. In 2013, Braun began managing the music career for Ariana Grande, who was then a fresh-faced Nickelodeon star, with the idea that he would work alongside her two existing managers, Stephanie Simon and Jennifer Merlino at Untitled Entertainment. In February 2016, Grande fired Braun before re-signing him about 7 months later. In interviews later, he blamed her departure on the influence of shitty boyfriends, which is honestly gross and misogynistic, Scooter. Like, I don't like that either. That's not a culty red flag. That's just a patriarchal, like, yucky. Like, she can't make decisions for herself. But considering how we talked earlier about how involved he was in Ariana Grande's relationships, if she had a boyfriend that was not as under his influence as she was, I could see how that would be a problem. When she returned, it was Braun as her sole manager. I don't think he liked having other people in the mix, said a person who has worked with Grande. While changes in management are common in the industry, this transition was particularly fraught, according to 3 people who witnessed it. A former Untitled employee said that Braun came into the office numerous times to meet with Merlino and Simon, and that the relations turned ugly. Merlino and Simon were really just fighting for any semblance of a good deal at the end, said the former employee, noting that the two women couldn't speak about the situation because of the non-disclosure agreements. It felt kind of like losing a child. Marty Singer says Ariana Grande entered into a settlement with her former managers, which Scooter Braun was not involved in and had nothing to do with. However, in my deep dive that I did on Scooter Braun, I talked a lot more about the feud with Taylor Swift and the fact that Taylor Swift says that Scooter Braun tried to have her sign NDAs as part of a deal for her to get her master's back. And they weren't normal NDAs. They were NDAs that said she couldn't talk bad about Scooter ever again, like ever say anything bad about him in the media again. And this is a common tactic of people in the entertainment and people in the entertainment industry to silence victims. Usually victims of SA have to sign these non-disclosure agreements to not say anything bad. But mega churches, evangelical mega churches do this as well. They have their employees sign NDAs so they can never talk bad about church or church leadership or church staff, so that they won't dissuade future members or make current members leave. So this is the only mention, I believe, of NDAs in this Business Insider article. But as I researched and deep dived on Scooter Braun, there were several other mentions of NDAs. So again, something else that's extremely, extremely culty. Let's see. More splintering relationships with other managers. I don't know that this was particularly all that exciting. Let me take a sip of my drink. I didn't read a whole lot of this in depth, but this says Carter and Creed remain shaken from their experience working with Braun. He uses the word business when it suits him, and he uses the word we're friends or family when it suits his needs. Again, back to good groups, good people. Like, they will never refer to themselves as family, and using business and family interchangeably, I personally think, is unethical at best and manipulative and shady at worst. This thing is so long. How much more do we have? quite a freaking bit. I think I'm going to keep going. Why not? Maybe not now. Okay. Braun's supporters suggest that his critics are just resentful of his fast and unconventional path to success. His glow makes everybody that's a little bit dimmer around him invisible, and that's hard for people to swallow, especially when they were previously the biggest lights in the room, his friend Matt Graham told Insider. There's an almost blinding optimism about him that anything is possible. Again, this is what cults say about former cult members. They're just jealous. They're just disgruntled. They're just an apostate. They're just blah, blah, blah. It can't possibly be that there's anything legitimate to criticize. It wouldn't be a big deal for Braun to embrace being a little bit of an asshole. The recording industry is a notoriously ruthless business with a long history of glamorizing tough guys who get the job done. And there's a reason the trope of the pugilistic manager has had such an enduring legacy. That's the shitty part of being a manager. You're always kind of the bad guy. Not if you're Scooter Braun. But Braun doesn't just want to be successful, he wants to be liked. This preoccupation with appearances helped him excel as a manager for the world's most scrutinized celebrities. It has also left his peers scratching their heads. After all, when you have all the money and power in the world, who cares what people think of you? This is where it gets so Scientology-ish. I was like, really? So during the reporting of this story, Insider experienced firsthand the lengths to which Braun would go to preserve his public face. Braun declined to speak on the record, but early in the research stage, Insider received multiple threatening letters from Braun's Hollywood attorney, Marty Singer, who is famed for his fire and brimstone missives to journalists. Singer said Insider's reporting was an attempt to distort Braun's hard work, dedication, and success into a defamatory smear. Later, after combing through years of my personal social media posts, as well as articles I had written as a culture writer for New York magazines, Singer wrote a letter suggesting I had deep ties to the Taylor Swift camp, noting that I had written approximately 15 positive stories about Taylor Swift in my career. Singer also falsely claimed that I had once been invited to a Taylor Swift listening party. Guys, fair game, anyone? How many cease and desist letters, how many lawyer letters has Scientology, or just letters from Scientology itself, has Scientology sent to journalists, to former members, to producers, literally to anyone that threatens to speak badly about them? If there's nothing bad to say, you do not need to aggressively defend yourself. Literally, this was the thing that I read in this article that I was like, okay, I understand. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there were so many red flags, and when you put them all together, I don't see how anyone is ignoring that. But when I heard that he was so aggressively trying to stop this article from being written, that's when I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, if there's nothing there, you don't have to be so aggressive. I don't think you can pretend to be the nice guy on social media, but behind the scenes be one of the most cutthroat people in the business. This is a very small business. You just run out of people to screw. Yup. So this is talking about how Braun's culty tactics, which I think they're very culty, really worked for him until 2019 when the battle with Taylor Swift ensued. For the first time, he came up against an adversary who exercised an even tighter grip over her own image than he did over his. I joke that Swifties are like a cult of their own. Any type of super fandom can also be really culty. And when you go up against someone like Taylor Swift, she ultimately had more power than he did in a lot of different areas. And like, she's one person that he cannot gain control over in order to keep his image, keep his grift going, keep his inner circle intact. And I can imagine he was kicking, screaming, crying, throwing a fit, pumping his fists in the air over this. I go in detail about this in my other deep dive of him. I'll just say that she accused him of incessant manipulative bullying of her for years. So again, this is someone telling the truth about who Braun is as a person. Someone that he's not more powerful than, someone that he couldn't wrap up in an NDA, someone that he can't blame is a former client that, in my opinion, doing the deep dive on him, doing all this research, this is what it looks like when someone tells the truth about a grifter or a culty leader. Being painted as the industry villain was so hard on Braun, people in his orbit said. After that, when asked about his political aspirations, he said that while he thought about public office in the past, it was no longer in the cards. Literally, cry me a freaking river. Recently, I was attacked very publicly by someone I don't know, someone who refused to have a conversation with me. That, according to Taylor Swift, is absolutely untrue. Oh my God. Okay, so this is what Carl Lentz did in Carl Lentz's recent documentary. Let me read this. What it did teach me was that if my children were teenagers, if they were a little bit older, this could have been very hard for them. And I don't know if I'm comfortable being in public office knowing the amount of ridicule and exposure you get. Which, like, fair. Oh no. You can hear me, but you can't see me. Oh no. Hold, please. Live technical difficulties. If somebody's watching, can you tell me if you can hear me even though you can't see me? Oh, hold on. Start. Okay. I am back, friends. Don't know why that happened. Carrying on. I was getting a little shitty about that. Oh, okay. Carl Lentz. So if you don't know who Carl Lentz is, you should go look that up. So Hillsong was a celebrity megachurch in New York. They still have a location in LA. Carl Lentz was a very famous pastor of that church. He was very close to Justin Bieber, also, ironically, makes this really funny. And he very quickly rose to fame, was extremely popular as far as pastors and preachers go. He was like a cool guy pastor. He was very tattooed. He preached a lot of inclusivity and stuff. And then it turned out he was cheating on his wife with anyone and everyone, including their nanny, and was abusing ADHD medication to be able to perform at the level he was performing, and basically was a giant hypocrite, which is funny because that's what people are saying about Scooter Braun, that there's just a lot of hypocrisy there. But Carl Lentz recently was in a Vanity Fair docuseries on FX about Hillsong, and it was the first time Carl Lentz spoke since his fall from grace. And the docuseries was very much painting Carl Lentz as the victim, because he was the narrative after his fall from grace was that he was this giant hypocrite and he was actually a giant asshole and he treated his wife so poorly and blah, blah, blah. And they used their children in the docuseries saying that this thing was so hard on their kids and people should think of their kids and they wish none of this was public because of their kids, without fully taking responsibility for what they did. He really went hard on painting the victim narrative. So I think that it's really interesting that Scooter Braun also was like, what if my children were older to understand what was going on? This could have been so hard for them. Okay, so this is talking about the sale of Ithaca to Hybe. He made a ton of money. This is another reason why people are saying that Scooter's clients are dropping him. Not that they're dropping him. Scooter's camp's narrative is that his clients are not dropping him. Scooter is moving out of talent management and more into a CEO position since he sold Ithaca Holdings to Hybe. So apparently, according to Scooter Braun, this is all very funny. And people aren't dropping him. He's just moving out of management. I'm back. It's about to storm here. So I may have to finish later. Or I might basically be done. Let's see. I wanted to mention I'll skip this part and make a separate video about this, about selling his company in arbitration. Not arbitration, about selling his company and the connections to Kylie Jenner and the similarities between Kylie Jenner selling Kylie Cosmetics to a bigger company. I did want to talk about this briefly. Scooter Braun did get into dueling lawsuits with a former business associate, and the associate accused him of fraud and abandoning his responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera. And Braun immediately petitioned for arbitration, like as soon as his former business partner filed a lawsuit against him, which again feels very Scientology-ish. Scientology makes all its members sign papers that you can never sue Scientology or bring up criminal actions against Scientology. And instead, you have to go through religious arbitration, which isn't really arbitration. It's just Scientology telling you that you're wrong and they are right. So that made me think of Scientology, very culty in that as well. Divorce rumors. I mean, that can also be something a little bit manipulative, like he's putting on this persona as a family man. Meanwhile, he's getting divorced and people accused him of cheating as well, although he never admitted to it. And it talks about how Braun is fighting to regain public trust and is trying to turn his life around and be a little bit more spiritual. So I would say Braun is kind of a cult leader that met a good adversary in Taylor Swift that had him stop being a cult leader. Oh, perfect. This is the end. So I wanted to leave you with this. One music creative said, I wouldn't really ever want to be repped by him. And then in some other ways, I'm like, maybe I would want to be repped by him because he gets his clients insane deals. You're sort of like, he's a piece of shit, but he's my piece of shit. And with that, and with the storm coming in, I'm going to end that here. That was fun. I feel like this is my first YouTube live, guys. My first solo YouTube live. So exciting for me. If you liked this, if you enjoy culty content, the connections between cult and pop culture, and all things culty vibes, please hit the like button, subscribe. I would love to See you around. And like I said at the beginning, if you subscribe, comment on this video, let me know you did, and I will chat with you a little bit in the comments. And I will see you next time on No Culty Vibes. Bye.